Good evening, Council. Good evening, staff and members of the public. Thank you for joining us for our virtual town hall. We are live streaming as normal, and we hope to have an actual backup system tonight, but the backup is causing us a little trouble. But we are also recording the meeting. So if there is any issues with the live stream, as soon as the meeting is over, the recording will be downloaded, so you'll be able to watch it at that time. This is a whole new world that we're learning to adjust to, and every meeting, I think we get a little bit better at what we're doing. One of the items that the clerk and I were talking about earlier today was to have some protocol over what happens if one of us loses our feed, if we fall off the meeting. So obviously, if I fall off, the deputy mayor will take over chairing the meeting. If other people fall off, we will continue with the meeting unless it's an item that is contentious that we think will, might be a close vote, at which time we will wait until you arrive back on screen. Does that sound fair? Anyone object to those rules? Okay, that's great. So now we'll open the meeting, and that I'll provide you with an opening statement and advise you that this meeting is being audio recorded and video recorded, and it shall form part of the record, which is to be retained in accordance with the town's retention bylaw. And for more information about that collection, you can contact the clerk's office. So our first item is open forum. So open forum this evening, the procedure is on our website for people who wish to participate. It's a little different than it was when we were sitting in council chambers, but everyone still has the opportunity to speak to items that are on the agenda. And tonight we have one person signed up for open forum, and it's Mr. Gavin Roth. And Mr. Roth, if you could turn your camera and your speaker on. Good evening, welcome.
Hi, can you see me?
Yes, thank you.
All right, terrific. Thank you for allowing me to speak. First of all, I want to commend the town staff who we've dealt with thus far. Everyone has been extremely generous with their time and very accommodating. We're located at 1918 Simcoe Boulevard, one of the homes directly adjacent to the proposed Simcoe Adams ramp. When we bought the property, part of the appeal was it was located at the end of a dead-end street in a quiet neighborhood. If the project moves forward, it will have a significant impact on us, both from a noise disruption and potential for impact on our property. And while I'm sure the town will be amenable to fixing any damage, the impact of these projects don't always manifest right away. Further, the project will increase foot traffic, and St. John's Road is very close and offers room for cyclists to head to Innisfil Beach Road or even Helen Street, which I believe was part of, Helen was named as a key road to get to, or to get to Adams. Helen joins up with Adams. Further, the staff report says neighbors will not receive this well if the road is closed off, and I respectfully challenge that, specifically asking on what basis that opinion was formed. I know this isn't a back and forth, so I'm just stating that that would be a query of ours. I know of direct neighbors that are not in favor of the ramp project happening. So while I commend the thinking behind the project being with accessibility in mind, which we're
Sorry,
all in
Your Worship,
favor of.
to interrupt. We were having some technical difficulties. Kim, your screen is being shared. I don't think you mean to be doing that. If you could turn your screen off. Very sorry to interrupt, Mr. Roth.
No problem.
We'll add that time back. Okay, looks like we've got it under control again. Our apologies.
Yeah. Yeah, so my last comment is, while I commend the thinking behind the project, since accessibility is in mind, I'm formally requesting that alternative number 2 on page 7 of the staff report be adopted, and that the staircase be closed off permanently. And that's all I have to say. I appreciate you allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Appreciate that. So we will be dealing with that item under C4. So you have the option of staying on the Zoom and turning off your video and sound, or you can depart altogether and watch on live stream. It's up to you, whichever way.
Thank you. My daughter informed me that she made dinner, so I'm being summoned. So I'll let you get back to your business, and I'll watch a recording. So thanks again. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I'd like to go for that dinner, but anyway, I guess that's not an option. Thank you. So that's open forum. So the next item is approval of the agenda. And we have a couple of agenda repair items on here tonight. There's a couple of notices of motion that we'll be looking at. So can I have a mover and a seconder for the agenda as amended? That'd be Councillor Waters and Councillor Nicol. All those in favor? And that is carried. And for anyone who's hearing a little bit of background noise, I apologize. My neighbor has decided it's time to cut the grass. So I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a lawnmower going in my left ear. Next is disclosures of interest. Does anybody have any disclosures of interest this evening? I see no hands. If one should become apparent to you, please let us know, or the clerk's office know at that time. Mr. Rayner.
Your worship, members of council, I do apologize to keep interrupting. I just wanted to ask if you wanted to just give us a couple of moments. We do seem to be struggling to have the live stream play. That is, of course, the preferred method. So we appreciate you don't want to wait all night for that to work, but if we could have just a moment just to see if we can get the technical issues resolved, that would be much appreciated.
Thank you. Absolutely. We'll take a bit of a recess, and while we're doing that, I wondered if Ms. Toma or anyone is aware whether or not Captain Imtiaz is on the call tonight.
I did not see him sign in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Your Worship, thanks very much. It looks like the link that people use from the town's website is working. There may be a problem with the searching in YouTube specifically, but it looks like we're live and can continue. Thanks very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you everyone, and for those who have just joined us, thank you so much. We are at a point in the agenda. We're at presentations and petitions, which is number 5. And tonight it is my honor to recognize and appreciate a longtime Innisfil resident who is retiring from the Canadian military, 4th Canadian Division's Training Center. And his name is Captain Mehdi Imtiaz. He has dedicated 41 years of his life to service of Canada and to the community of Innisfil. And he is very highly regarded by Lieutenant Grezel, who wrote to me and asked me if I would be so kind as to recognize him for his commitment to his country, his province, and his community, and how well respected he is. And so we are happy to do that tonight. And Captain, if you're listening, and we wish you an absolutely wonderful retirement. And we are going to send you a scroll. And I believe there was a photo going to be displayed of the scroll, if that's possible. There it is. And we'll make sure that that gets to you, to your home. I know that that he also received a letter signed from both the Prime Minister and the Premier. So wishing you a healthy, long retirement, and a thank you, sir, for your service to your country. And so with that, I would ask for a recommendation that the presentation, that Council extends their appreciation to Captain Mehdi Imtiaz of the Canadian Armed Forces for his dedication and service to our country. And that is moved by Councillor Van Berkel and seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next is delegations, and our first delegation of the evening, or our only delegation of the evening, is regarding our 2020 information technology and digital strategy. And here presenting it would probably be Mr. Cowan and also Ben Perry from the Perry Group Consulting. Whenever you're ready, gentlemen. Welcome. Welcome virtually.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Dollin. Good evening, Mayor. Sorry, we're getting a little bit of echo here, but we'll try our best we can.
It may be helpful, Grant, if only one of you is unmuted at a time. I know you're tag teaming the presentation, so to speak, but Ben, if you stay muted while Grant's speaking and vice versa, that may help.
Sure, we'll try this. I was getting everything right, so we'll see what happens. Good evening, Mayor Dollin, members of council. With me virtually is Mr. Ben Perry from Perry Group Consulting. We're happy to be in front of you this evening to present our updated IT digital strategy. Strategy encompasses more than just IT and looks at how moving to digital services and processes, both inward and outward facing, can have positive benefits for the municipality and residents. Through the COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen how digital services allow us to continue daily operations while not physically in the building or in close contact with each other. This meeting is a good example of how adopting digital services can enhance traditional delivery models. With that, I'd like to turn over to Mr. Perry to guide us through a presentation.
Thank you, Grant. I think you should be able to see my slides. A nod might be, would confirm that. So just a quick introduction to us. Perry Group is a consulting firm that focuses on municipal technology and digital strategy. Over the last 10 years, we've worked with over 100 municipalities across Canada, and we're delighted to be here to present this work. We think this is a strategy that really positions the town to capitalize on its well-deserved reputation for innovation. We've got maybe 15 minutes to talk to you about some of these things. So here's our outline of what we'd like to talk about, but let's really dive in. I think as Grant pointed out there, we're in the middle of a pandemic, which has really forced a lot of change on all of us. And I think it's probably teaching us some important lessons. The town has obviously fairly rapidly moved to a work from home, a digital meeting, moving new services online. These are some pretty major changes that have happened very quickly. None of it was perfect, as we're seeing some of the challenges this evening. None of it was without risk or effort. But it does show us how quickly the organization can pivot and change when the pressure is on. It tells us a lot about our ability to change in the future. And it shows how quickly we can embrace digital technology. And I think there's a lot of lessons that the town can take as it goes forward, as it looks to implement new digital services and solutions. There's of course a broader context, a technology story We're all spending a lot more time at Netflix and talking to family members with WhatsApp and FaceTime and buying things on Amazon. And those types of organizations have really changed the way that we interact and the way that we perceive what good service looks like. That type of online service has been felt throughout the service industry, with banks, insurance companies, grocery stores, all responding to that sort of service challenge. And I think increasingly governments are responding to that. So think about your own experiences with the CRA or Service Ontario, renewing a health card, a driving license, or a vehicle sticker. You can also look at how Canadians are using technology. I think it's quite interesting to see how broadly internet penetration is becoming, though there are some opportunities in Innisfil to improve that situation. Smartphones are everywhere. Nearly all Canadians below the age of 45 own a smartphone. And a surprisingly high number of people use online banking, 88%. So we think that's a really good reference point for the town. If that many people are willing to interact with their bank online, it's likely that they're going to be willing to interact with their governments online. So in the era of Netflix and Amazon and Uber and Skip the Dishes, really the question is, what should customer service look like? At a conference that I was at recently, one of the speakers said that municipalities really provide a blockbuster service to a consumer that's really looking for Netflix-like service. So in a post-COVID world, really, who wants to come into town hall to stand in line for a service that they could do conceivably online, apply for a license, book an inspection, pay a fine or a bill? So we think that's one of the central drivers for investment in technology and digital transformation. It's really the customer experience. And the banks have been doing this for years and have done a really good job, I think. Imagine if when you went to your bank branch to check your account balance at the counter, the teller said, "I don't have that information. You're going to have to speak to Mark and he's at lunch right now." That doesn't happen because the bank has digitized account information, transactions, all of their processes. So as a customer, you can go into any branch. Chances are those people can help you with your inquiry. And the fact is, you can't serve customers effectively without digitized processes. And once you've digitized those processes, then you can move customers towards a self-service model. So that means they can use their own skills and capabilities to use an ATM or to use a smartphone and a browser to do work that previously tellers or back office staff did. Importantly, in the banking world, this is really releasing tellers to be retrained to focus on higher value activities. So these are some sort of foundational concepts that we've been thinking about as we've been looking at the technology and digital strategy for the town. Your customers' expectations have changed, your staff expectations have changed, and you can't meet those expectations without investment in technology and digitization of back office processes. So as part of the plan and development of the plan, we did a detailed and thorough sort of assessment of the current situation. Current state revealed lots of great positives. It's really refreshing for us to work with such a progressive and open-minded organization. Got a really strong IT team. We're really excited by the possibilities we see at the town, and we think the conditions are right for Innisfil to be a real leader in digital government. As a small town, you can be agile and unencumbered by big city thinking. You can be adaptive and flexible. And we see the notions of innovation and future being core to your strategy, and grow, connect, and sustain a really valuable sort of ideas that apply well to our digital thinking, as well as our digital thinking supports those goals. While we saw many positives, there are always opportunities. So we noted that there's need for some work in some of the core business systems supporting that digitization of processes. So some modernization of those back office processes, some expansion of those systems that you already have. There are some opportunities to be more expansive in our view of technology and to encourage collaboration between the partners. There's an important change in mindset to make sure that we recognize that digital and technology success is what we call a team sport. Successful outcomes are really dependent on great partnerships and business leadership, not on IT superheroes. There is a desire to move faster, and certainly here we can learn from our recent experiences. And there's a need to consider how much we invest in technology. If we want to get better and we want to compare ourselves to leading organizations, we might have to consider how much we're investing in technology as we go forward. So this is all of the context, the background. Here's the strategy. So in putting together the strategy, the first thing we thought was really we need to respond to the pervasiveness of technology by thinking bigger and bolder. So this strategy is taking a much broader view than any previous IT strategy that we've worked on with the town. Not just about the way that we use technology to support staff inside the organization, but it's about how we use technology to deliver great customer experiences, to engage the community, how we can build a prosperous and thriving community where there's opportunity for everyone. So the strategy itself introduces 4 specific areas of focus, each with cross-organization teams assigned to drive the work forward. And the first one is focusing on digital services. So already there are some services that you can book online. So you can book recreation programs, you can apply for your burn permit, you can apply for a heavy load permit. The town plans to move many more of their services online. And the digital experience of interacting with the town should be as good as the bank experience that we described earlier. Log in once, access all of your services, common, simple, easy to use, available from anywhere, available anytime. And as we developed the strategy, we also co-opted an existing phrase in use at the town, one team. We extended that to one customer, one town, one team, and making sure that the interactions that customers have with the town are consistent throughout. Of course, whilst we're encouraging of digital services, face-to-face services will always be available for those that want them. But our goal is really to make online services so good that customers want to use them in preference to the in-person services that the town offers. The next area of focus is smart city. Recent events obviously have pointed out the need for us to have good connectivity. You know, it's a basic or essential service as defined by the CRTC. And I think the experience recently has sort of confirmed that there's some gaps in connectivity in the town. So various opportunities we need to evaluate to improve connectivity in the town. So there's some plans ahead to work on a strategy to set out ways to improve that situation. The town also plans to partner and explore how they can use smart city technology, potentially to help identify water leaks, help traffic flow better, to reduce overall operating costs. And as part of that, to gather more data about how the community uses the town services, and so that we can optimize and improve service delivery. The third big theme is around digital economy. And the town really sees the digital economy as a key focus of economic development work. Digital sector itself is one of the fastest growing sectors in Canada. And the town intends to promote and encourage local startups by establishing conditions that are conducive. So things like fast internet, smart local workforce, and a local community of technology-based businesses. The town also plans to work with the private sector on smart city partnerships and community challenges, really working and experimenting with the private sector to develop smart technology that could benefit the municipality and potentially contribute to development of businesses in the town. The, oops, I skipped forward there. The final one is theme is really around internal productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness. So this is all of the things we talked about earlier in terms of digitized processes. There's a number of opportunities to move away from paper processes within the town to digital workflow-based processes, reduce the use of paper where we're dealing with invoices, timesheets, expense claims, and the like, moving away from physical signatures to digital signatures, modernizing those types of things. The town plans to significantly expand mobile staff access to technology so that they can deal more speedily with requests from the public, so they can access maps and drawings and maintenance records in the field. And using data and AI to help us optimize, so looking at snowplow routing and optimizing building inspections and preventative maintenance. Increasingly being more open with the data that the town collects and sharing that with the community. So those are the four big strategies or the four big themes of the strategy. To mobilize the strategy, there's a handful of things that we think are important. First, we need to ensure that technology expertise and advice is readily available to business leaders as they're thinking about service delivery and formulating plans and strategy. So we're going to make some organizational changes, some alignment changes so that we can get members of the IT team more involved in business planning. We're planning to leverage existing investments and solutions. We've got some good solutions in the organization, more, which I'm sure you've heard of, GIS, some of the Great Plains and WorkTech solutions. We're going to be building on top of those and enhancing those solutions and extending them. In some cases, we're going to need to buy and replace some systems, particularly around some of our HR systems, our people management systems. And those requests will come forward through the budget process as usual. The plan is to adopt more agile approaches so that we can work faster, get solutions to staff quicker, being more experimental, much more use of cloud technology as we go forward, and working with entrepreneurs and startups. The town already uses the marketplace to augment the internal IT team, and we'll continue to do that and expand that as we go forward, leveraging the private sector for commoditized services that are maybe more efficiently or effectively delivered. And I think as you go forward, you're going to need to look closely at investments in technology, but use smart governance practices to select the initiatives that are going to have the largest bang for the buck, the biggest impact to the community and the services that you deliver, the efficiency and the effectiveness of the organization. So quick summary here. I think, as we said earlier, we think the conditions in Innisfil is only great to be a leader and to really build on your reputation for innovation. We think that the strategy outlines how you can do that. The four areas or the focus areas that we've talked to really provide the guideposts for the town's trajectory going forward. These are the areas where we think there's most impact, most opportunity, all of which we think are pretty central to supporting the town's vision to being a great and inclusive community. So that's our sort of quick summary of an overview of the strategy. If you have any questions, then Grant and I are available to answer those.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perry and Mr. Cowan. I'll take questions from members of council. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, great presentation, and in the time we're in, we all can relate to how important technology is to every one of us. So my question is with regards to community connectivity. Innisfil is a mix of rural and urban, and where I think there should be a really high priority placed is bringing everybody up to a certain level when it comes to internet service. it's becoming just as important as, you know, services, the other services that all our residents have access to. I'm just wondering about comments on how, what tools are there to help those people that are in maybe the rural areas that don't have high-speed service, or it's very expensive. So how do municipalities deal with those challenges?
Ron, do you want to take that, and then I can help out?
I can start. Through you, your worship, to Councillor Ices. That is a very difficult question, and it is something we have talked about, and we're looking at different options. We're working with our partners at InPower to see how we can work together to provide some solutions. And through the Perry Group, we've got some contacts with some other municipalities in other areas and how they've dealt with that problem and what they put in for some solutions to help address that. We know it's a challenging problem, and but it's something that's important, especially if we want to give some of these services. It doesn't really benefit much if people can't use them. So looking at different options to get higher speed internet access to the rural areas is an important part of this strategy, and we are looking at different options on that. I'm not sure, Ben, if you have anything else.
Yeah, I guess I'll just throw in that I think different communities are treating this in different ways. There are a number of different options that can range from building infrastructure through to stimulating carriers to build infrastructure. Other communities, Caledon, for instance, have built a fund and are through a levy to stimulate the building of infrastructure throughout their community. So I think there are a range of, we're not saying in the strategy here, you know, prefer any one of those options. The town needs to do some work to evaluate what the needs are and evaluate the various different business models and options that are available. But I can say that there are a number of communities that are working on similar initiatives to stimulate improved connectivity in their communities, for sure.
Thank you. I'll go to Mr. Rayner, but I just wanted, I had to giggle a little bit when you mentioned Caledon, because Mayor Thompson is definitely the flag bearer when it comes to broadband access across Ontario. In fact, I was in a meeting with him last week, and the Minister of Infrastructure said, "What's going on? We've been talking for 10 minutes and I haven't heard Alan Thompson talk about broadband once yet." So it's definitely out there. Also, the Eastern Ontario counties are working through EORN, and the Southwestern Ontario counties are working through SWIFT to bring broadband across their entire area. And I know you're going to ask me what SWIFT stands for, and I couldn't tell you, but I do know that, and that our warden is at Simcoe County is very much involved in that advocacy as well, and they're working hard. Mr. Rayner.
Thank you, Worship. Members of Council, can you hear me okay? Yeah, I just wanted to add that perhaps this is a good opportunity to mention that we, although we're exploring a number of different options, including the fiber optic and dark fiber, as Mr. Cowan alluded to, we do not have any secret plans for 5G towers. And just wanted to bring that up, that there's no 5G in the future at the moment.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Mr. Melanishan, who told me that it's the Southwestern Integrated Fiber Technology is what SWIFT stands for. Other questions? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick question regarding Google leaving the smart city in Toronto. Do you think that has any implications for other communities in Ontario wanting to explore slightly lesser versions of that, and specifically since we've got this partnership with Ryerson and the orbit happening, whether or not there is some sort of opportunity to move in that direction, maybe not to the extent that Google was thinking of, because there was a lot of backlash against the amount of data that they wanted to scoop. So I just kind of curious your feedback on that.
Mr. Perry or Mr. Cowan?
Through your worship, I think, yes, there is still need that we could go and do that, or opportunity. The Sidewalk Labs project in Toronto was quite extensive and robust. There's a lot of options we can look at on a much smaller scale that we can put in, and we can try it out and on a small scale and see if it actually works for us. And if it does, we can roll it out larger. And if it doesn't, we pull the plug on it and move to something else. There's it's evolving every day on that. There's lots happening, and some of it's good, some of it is maybe not. It does have a bit much benefit to us, and at the same time we have to balance that privacy issue as well. Is what are we collecting, and do we have to collect it, or do we save it, or do we just collect it and save just the aggregate information but not individual things? So it's a lot of things to consider there, but I do think that there is opportunities to play in that and do some experiments and see how it can benefit us.
Thank you.
Could I just add there? I do think that there's probably a lot of factors at play in the sidewalk thing, in terms of privatization of government services and various other aspects. Some of the things that we've suggested actually in the strategy are about one, working with the community to talk about the data and privacy issues that we've identified, that Grant just mentioned, really to put people at ease around what data is being collected and how it's going to be used. We've also suggested engaging some external advisors to help you with some of that work. I do think it's important as you're moving forward, collecting information about the use of your services and the movements around your community. These are really genuinely sensitive topics that you have to treat very carefully and consider all of the options and consider all of the perspectives. And so, building a broader church that gets input from the community is probably pretty important to choosing the right path.
Thank you for that. I was just thinking that there was a good opportunity since Google was stepping back, and with the orbit, there might be some field that we can play in that maybe fits smaller communities, and having that smarter version, but on a smaller scale. Thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the presentation. It's quite interesting. We are moving into the digital age. I'm probably going to get beaten over the head for this, but I'm looking at the financial considerations here in the report. I'd like it if those numbers, we're just taking this today as received for information. So as we move forward with this, I'd like to see the dollars and cents, because it basically says approximately 4.5% of our total operating expenditures and 3% of planned capital spending. When I'm looking at percentages and knowing what each percentage represents to the taxpayer, this is in the millions of dollars. So I really would like to see the report as we move forward done in dollars and cents, not in percentages, so I could look at the impact on the taxpayers at the time. Thank you.
Thank you. That would be done during the budget processing, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions? I just would like to say thank you very much for the presentation. It was very enlightening, and for somebody who has been around a while, before we had email, I had to drive to town council to pick up my 400-page agenda in a binder every council meeting, and how far we've come. And I know we have a long way to go, but I really do appreciate it, everything that our IT team does. I sometimes think that IT is kind of like other municipal services. You get so used to them that you take them for granted until they don't work. And that's when you realize how important they are, is when you click on something and it doesn't happen. So I appreciate that very much, and appreciate how, you know, some of the technology we've adopted. One of the things that made a real difference for me was when we did the tracker for the snowplows. I used to get a ton of people saying they hadn't seen a plow in 5 days, and now I can say, oh yes, well, a snowplow went down your street at 11:26 a.m. and another went down your street at 1:17 p.m. And it really made such a difference in being able to provide people with that information. So that's just one of the many things that has become such an advantage for us. So thank you, gentlemen. And the recommendation as seen on the screen is just to receive this for information. And I'd like to ask for a mover and a seconder for that recommendation, Councillor Fowler, and a seconder, Councillor Ices. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are on item 7, and that is County Council, Municipal Associations, and Conservation Authority and Committee updates. So we'll start with Councillor Nicol.
Hey, Your Worship, just quickly on the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, on April 24th, we were finally able to hold our first online board meeting. Went through the 2019 financials, the draft strategy plan. The day was virtually seamless. We did have 2 different agendas that we had to toggle through, but got through that. The NVCA did announce yesterday that they will be reopening the facility, or not the facilities, the site at the Tiffin Center on Friday. And our next meeting will be on the 22nd of May virtually. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Councillor Fowler.
There we go. I just like to make everybody aware that the Helping Hands Committee had our first meeting last week. We've got a good start underway. We're just want people to be made aware that the application can be done online at Innisfil. Now we have we're going to be expecting more as Pastor Courtney has been helping residents themselves. Just never hurts to ask. You know, we've council's given up part of their salary, town staff has given up part of their salary. We have residents donating of their own accord, so that's really incredible. We're doing the best we can to help everybody, and we look forward to seeing what we can do with the next number of everybody.
Thank you, Councillor. Other committees, Councillor Waters.
Just very quickly from the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, we've had several virtual meetings and they all seem to be going very well. So I'm glad that Innisfil was probably one of the first municipalities to go digital. The Conservation Authority has adopted the same strategy, and it seems to be working quite well. So, so we're getting business done, and I'm really glad to see that.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any updates? Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on behalf of County Council and Deputy Mayor Dan Davidson, that allowed me to step in his place. Thank you very much for that. The county has announced that there's new changes coming to the waste transfer sites, and the one that's of interest to Innisfil residents is the West Gwillimbury site located in Bradford. As of effective May 25th, they'll be changing their hours to allow them to be open longer. They'll be open from 8:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon. That's from Tuesday to Saturday. West Gwillimbury will be closed on Sundays and Mondays. And they've allowed a little bit more because previously the drop-offs were reduced options during the COVID restrictions, but now with all the home renovations and that, people be able to start taking their things to the site. Please remember that residents must unload the vehicles themselves. Payments must be made by debit or credit card to follow all the rules of the COVID restrictions.
Thank you, Councillor Arsadi, and they are getting very, very heavy use, our landfill sites. So please allocate quite a bit of time, because you probably will have to stand in or sit in line and be patient. Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to, I sat in on the Committee of Adjustment in April. It was virtual and it worked very well. It went seamlessly. People went in on Zoom just like they did here for the deputation, and we had quite a lengthy agenda that day, but it went seamlessly. So you don't have to be afraid to come to the Committee of Adjustment. It works as well as it did when you were there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else have Councillor Waters?
Yeah, just one thing off of Councillor Arsadi's mention of the waste transfer sites is that we all realize that a few months ago we lost the electronic depots throughout Innisfil in terms of dropping off your electronics. And just let people know that there are private businesses in Barrie. Jeep happens to be one, GEEP in Barrie, which takes electronic wastes and metals, and they actually pay you for it. So so I took a bunch of stuff in there the other day. It was filled the back of my wife's VW Bug, and got $12 for it. So it was well worth taking the time to dispose of the electronic waste properly. So I just wanted to mention it off of Councillor Arsadi's comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I had a couple of quick things. We've had 2 county council meetings since our last town meeting, and the meeting before that on April the 28th, it was Emergency Preparedness Week. And the county has an amazing guide. It's a catalog really, but it's online, and it covers just about any type of emergency you could ever imagine and how you can prepare for that. And since we do seem to have a little more time on our hands these days, it might be a good time to go on the county website, go through that, and make sure you've got the proper things in your car, the proper things saved at home for all these different types of emergencies. And then my only other thing is to say that the AMO meetings, the Association of Municipalities Ontario, have really ramped up. As you can imagine, there's lots of conversations going on with the province. There was a marathon Zoom meeting the other day that included the Minister of Long-Term Care, the Minister of Natural Resources, the Minister of Energy, the Minister of Labor, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Infrastructure in one meeting. So just in case you think working from home is, you know, we're sitting on the couch dilly-dallying and watching Netflix, it's there's just a lot going on right now, but it's moving quickly. So having said that, we'll move on to our next item, which is our consent list. So for those of you watching that maybe have not watched a council meeting before, we go through this list. There's staff recommendations on each item. If council is happy with the staff recommendation and nobody pulls that item for discussion, then at the end of the meeting, we'll pass one motion that will approve all of those recommendations. And then of course, every council member who wishes to discuss or make changes to any of the recommendations will pull it, and then we'll start to discuss that in committee of the whole. So we'll start the list. So adoption of minutes. A1 was the special council meeting of April 22nd. A2, the council meeting minutes of April 22nd. A3, the special council meeting minutes of April 29th. And then there were no reports from various committees. C1 was the Innisfil Historical Society's council discretionary funds. Councillor Ices, do you want to pull that for committee?
Yeah, I'll pull it.
Thank you. Next is item C2, the staff report regarding the response to COVID pandemic. I'll pull that. C3, the managing the financial impact of COVID-19. Councillor Fowler, you want to pull that one?
It's more of a question that I have when the time comes, if possible.
Thank you. Next is C4, the AODA ramp at Adams and Simcoe. Councillor Orsatti wants to pull that one. C5, the Guildford Road resurfacing update. Councillor Nicol, did you want to pull it or?
No, I don't need to pull it. I just wanted to make a comment. Just to know that we already discussed this, but you know, with the deficiencies and the ditch work failures there, I did ask before, and I do ask again that if we keep a log of the contractors, the builders and engineers whose work has been an issue in the past, and can or will we restrict or consider these when awarding tenders in the future? That's all.
Okay, I'm sure that has been duly noted. Item C6, the staff report regarding waterfront parking rates. Councillor Nicol wants to pull that one. C7, the municipal drain maintenance cleanout works. Seeing none. D is staff reports for information. So D1, the Trans-Canada Trail Bridge grant funding success. D2, the appointment of community standards officers, co-ops. D3, the expansion to Innisfil Heights strategic settlement area boundary. Councillor Nicol, did you want to pull that?
I didn't need to pull it. I just wanted to comment on it if I could. Obviously, the expansion there, it's been 12 years before it finally was granted. We're finally able to justify future servicing, with this advancement. I just hope that, we and staff continue to lobby or push to ease the types of employment usages and the restrictions to further help realize these lands. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else have comments on item D3? I just wanted to actually thank staff for their really, really hard work on this file. You'll see that list of history, that this is kind of another Innisfil Creek drain, one that's been around for 12 years, and so happy to see this come to fruition. And I'm really thankful to Minister Clark, and I'm going to draft him a nice thank you letter for this. And also I love the fact that it diversifies what we have to offer here as far as employment going into the future. And a big shout out to Ms. Verbosch, who really helped on this file. The timeline is quite clear about all of the work that's gone into this. But what's missing is the years and years and years of delegations and going to meetings and getting the blank stare. And so finally to get this this through is just, it's really a very proud moment for Innisfil. Okay, so we have no bylaws this evening. We have no correspondence for action, and we have several items for information. Is there any items for information that anybody wanted to pull? Seeing none, we will go to the 8.1, which is the consent list recommendations, and I'm going to need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Nicol, Councillor Ices, all those in favor? That is carried. All right, so the first item pulled. Oh, sorry, now we have to move into committee of the whole. Need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Van Berkel, Councillor Orsatti, all those in favor? That's carried. And the first item of business was C1, and that was Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm hopeful that someone will second me deferring this. I don't really want to change the motion, but Councillor Fowler is my seconder. So, Council, I was the one that pulled it last time, and the reason I pulled it this time was just to highlight the really awesome work that the Historical Society has done in giving us a 200-year anniversary history book. And in this time that we're in, I think it's going to hold even more significance. So I wanted to take the opportunity to thank our the great people on the committee that did that work. I also am thankful to staff for going over with them how we could help them out on the finance side. And I'm confident that we did the best we could. So those are my comments, and I'll leave the floor open for any more. Thanks.
Thank you. I just have a question to the Deputy Clerk. Are we not missing something on this recommendation? Should this second report, because there's the 10,000 plus the 2,500, and I'm not seeing that on the screen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, I'm not sure what happened there because the slides were reviewed, and I believe what happened is when they were transferred down into the Committee of the Whole, that slide was not changed. So if we could just put the PowerPoint back, there we go. Our apologies.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. So
that looks better.
Yeah. So is Councillor Fowler, you're still seconding that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments on this? Councillor Nicol.
Just want to thank Councillor Ices for deferring this last meeting, and for staff for finding the solution. I think it's a great solution. I already got my my letter in the mail, and I've already ordered my copy. So at least $20 is going towards it right away.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I did have a note here to remind everybody to order your copies. And all in favor of the recommendation? That is carried. Thank you so much. Next was item C2. And I would need someone to move and second this. I just wanted to bring it forward for discussion because, so it would be Councillor Van Berkel and Councillor Nicol. I only wanted to highlight this because of the incredible amount of work that has gone into this. When you look back that, you know, the middle of March, we started this, and the amount of initiatives and things that have gone forward over that time is really quite remarkable. When you look at not only were staff working in different environments and different conditions, but able to pivot to that home remote work and still get all of this done is really quite incredible. I wanted to just speak quickly about the hackathon, which was highlighted in the report. I was thrilled to be one of the judges, and all 5 could have been chosen. With very hard work, we whittled it down to 3, but all 3 of them are so are going to be so helpful. And actually, Mr. Perry, when he was talking about the IT strategy, a lot of what he was covering are things that were in that hackathon. So one of them was about digitizing timesheets and making that more efficient. But another one was having a chatbot who would answer with AI, answer kind of the everyday questions, the more regular questions that customer service gets, to leave them more time to deal with the more specialized things that requires specialized answers. And then the one that was closest to my heart was an alert system. So for those of you who attended the debrief we had with the residents who were affected by the sewer backup back in January, one of the comments that these residents made was, you know, it would have been nice to have gotten a heads up so we would have known, we could have moved precious things. And this particular app would allow staff to send out very targeted messages to very targeted areas, and an alert would come up on their smartphone if they had one, or it would ring to their phone if they didn't, and a message would would be read to them on their phone. So just really great if we can get all these, all three of those startups going. It could be a huge win for us. So kudos to everyone at the town for getting us where we are today. There's not a day go by I don't hear from some resident about that they use the What's for Dinner app, or that they appreciated the fact that we donated that money to the food bank, or in fact the Helping Hands that Councillor Fowler spoke about earlier, and the people who've contributed to that. So just wanted to say thank you. Mr. Rayner.
Thank you, Worship, and members of council. We appreciate your support and your direction and guidance through these challenging times. We know that you have been reaching out to the community and garnering and gathering the interest from the community and sharing that information with us. So we really appreciate that. That helps inform that rapid response and that pivoting that your worship talks about. I just wanted to, if I could, your worship, just draw attention to the component of the report that indicates that we'll be, these are a lot of the immediate pieces that we have been addressing for the community needs, but we recognize that the echo of COVID will likely be with us much longer than the specific health and safety concerns related to the virus are. And so we are commencing a community roundtable discussion with community leaders and stakeholders to better understand what those sort of medium and longer term, as well as short term, I should say, needs will be, so that we can incorporate that information and that data into the good work that the staff is doing to prepare for the 21-22 budget cycle, which I can appreciate sounds like a very long way away, but in many ways, as you know, we are already beginning that process. It takes many months to prepare the budget for a 2-year cycle, and it has begun already. And so we're looking forward to getting that data and incorporating that so that you have a budget in front of you that's proposed for 21-22 that incorporates those pieces of the community's needs as we understand they're shifting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sadi.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank Mr. Rayner for pulling this report together, because I think it is so helpful to our community to know what has been going on behind the scenes throughout the town with all our services, things that have using the technologies such as the Mayor's Minute to communicate and update residents, and seeing all of this, that from customer service to operations, and knowing that behind the scenes things are being painted in anticipation of future openings is great. And I know there's a lot of work, and I just wanted to thank you for pulling this report together, and thank all the staff, because this really is an eye-opener. I think our town and our staff and our council have worked so well together throughout this, and this is a great demonstration of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Your Worship, if I could just thank as well the leadership team and our Health and Wellness Catalyst, Sandy, who's been able to help quarterback a lot of this hard work. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner, for mentioning Ms. Foster, because I think somebody must have been reading the tea leaves when we hired our Health and Wellness Catalyst, that she had a public health background. And I mean, what a better opportunity to have somebody on your team with that type of background during a pandemic. So that is wonderful. Just a couple of other things I wanted to highlight in the report. One, it talks about the newspaper update. So the fact that simcoe.com is Innisfil Journal is going to a bi-weekly paper, but we've also been told that the Innisfil Today, which is the other paper, is going to be starting very shortly. So that'll be something new for us. The talk about the garbage issues with dumping on the side of the road, I was really glad to see that that's been highlighted. I can say that even with the West Gwillimbury dump opening for more, landfill opening for more hours, that I saw that the Barrie landfill is going to reopen, which I think will make a big difference too, because they have had their landfill closed for several weeks now. And so I think when people are given an option to dispose of things legally, I think most people would like to do that when they could. And then finally, I wanted to just ask one question, if I could, to Mr. Inwood about the gravel for the roads. I'm not sure if it was this report or the next report where we spoke about not graveling the roads, and wondering if there's a road that's really in need, do we have the opportunity to go in and do something?
Thank you, Your Worship. Happy to address that. It is this report that highlights that we will not be doing the addition of gravel to many of the gravel roads as we do on an annual basis. I can assure you, though, that our team is out grading the roads. Our dust control program is in place and active. And we will closely monitor the roads. If we have problematic areas, we will address those. We want to make sure our roads are in compliance with the maintenance standards and the approved levels of service. So we will continue to monitor very closely those roads as we forego most of that program for the year, and certainly will address problem areas if they arise.
Thank you. Councillor Waters?
Thank you, Your Worship. In the report, there's a part on park operations, and if we've all listened to the Premier this week, he's talked about opening parks and cottages and motorboats and marinas and that kind of stuff. Is there a quick update we can get from operations in terms of the parks, in terms of parking lots? Are we planning on opening those soon? The long weekend's coming up, so it might be nice just to get a quick update before the long weekend in terms of what residents can expect.
Sure, I'm going to start, if that's okay, Mr. Inwood, and then I'll go on to you. So I don't know if you saw it today, but the 8 municipalities that are the Lake Simcoe waterfront municipalities all put out a joint press release. It was targeted to the GTA, basically saying, please don't day trip right now, that you'll be disappointed if you come to our waterfront park and there is no public washrooms. Of course, that was at 6:50 this morning that was released. And then after that, the Premier has talked about opening up some areas, including provincial parks. So the EOC, the emergency operations team, meets tomorrow morning, I believe. And there's a notice of motion a little later on the agenda that we'll have some further discussion on. Mr. Inwood, I'll let you take it from there.
Thank you, Your Worship. And we certainly appreciate the great work that you did representing Innisfil and the Lake Simcoe communities this morning. With that messaging targeted at the Greater Toronto area. So thank you very much for doing that. And to address Councillor Waters' questions, I can assure you, Councillor Waters and Council and everyone paying close attention to what's happening with the parks, that we are equally paying as close attention. At this point in time, we are expecting some updates from the province tomorrow, and I can assure you that contingency planning for any variety of what may or may not come from the province tomorrow have been in place and are active, and frankly have consumed a good chunk of myself and my team's time for the bulk of the last few days, and especially today, as we prepare for what may or may not be for the May long weekend. So I think in short, we're ready for whatever it might be, and once we have some confirmation from the province and in consultation with the emergency control group tomorrow, we will certainly be pushing out the appropriate communications to the community so that there's a fulsome understanding of what they can expect as we head into this May long weekend and the subsequent, hopefully warmer weather in the weeks to come.
Just kind of follow up on that, is that there's a lot of pressure on the local plaza at the 25th and 8th line about parking. And I'm getting several phone calls about that. And I think bylaw is spending 8 to 10 times a day going to that spot. And I have requested that if it's possible to open up the parking at the Toboggan Hill to help me relieve some of that pressure. Has that gained any traction at all, or are we still, am I still going to receive phone calls?
So I did send you a response through an email to that, Councillor Waters, but keep in mind things are changing every hour. So it's really difficult. The main focus today was to discourage day trippers. That is what we want to do, at least for phase one. And if we do, if we are able to open up slowly, it's certainly our hope that we can do that just for residents first and not visitors. So the idea behind the communication that went out was to discourage day trippers from coming forward. But when we get the parking lots, you could argue are amenities or not amenities, and that's where the issue is between how different municipalities are interpreting the order differently. But we believe we're going to get some more information tomorrow. So EOC will meet tomorrow, and I'll commit to updating council as soon as there's a decision made, and then also the communications will be on it as well as quickly as possible. Mr. Emlyn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Waters, just as a follow-up on the specific of the plaza at the 25th, we are certainly aware of those incoming complaints, and we'll be doing a much more active monitoring of that particular location coming into this long weekend.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand we want to discourage visitors to the town and the parking. I understand that fully. It was just that local residents who want to visit the park are choosing to park at that local plaza and creating a little bit of havoc, I think more on weekends than during the week. And I thought that the Toboggan Hill was an interim step that will allow residents just to park there and take that overflow. But I can wait till tomorrow and see what happens. But I'm getting emails and phone calls on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you. I can tell you I'm not very popular with fishermen right now either. So we will get there. Any other questions or comments on that item? C2. Seeing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. Thank you for your indulgence in spending so much time on that, but I just felt it was very important. C3 was pulled by Councillor Fowler, and you had some questions. Councillor Fowler, first, if you could have a seconder.
Anybody? Just a question to be answered.
Okay, Councillor Van Berkel seconded the motion.
Okay, I'm reading through the staff report for action, and I come across section 4, and there's something that I'd just like some clarification on if possible. In the guiding financial principles, it states the following broad set of financial planning principles have been created as a guiding force to assist council in decision-making and development of action plans to steer the town through the COVID-19 crisis. These principles are being used by the municipalities in addition to some tailored specifically for Innisfil. The intent of these principles is to ensure the town emerges on a strong financial footing with residents still receiving the high level of service that they've become accustomed to. Albeit some of those services may be modified, as we see a gradual loosening of the COVID restrictions, the duration of the crisis is still unclear, thus further reinforcing the need for strong guiding financial principles to carry us through the long term. I like the comment. I like the way it's laid out. The only thing that I have a question about is, does it have a shelf life? Is this something that we're adopting even after the crisis is passed, or is this going to be something that when we return back to normal will be eased up on and eventually phased out? It's not very clear on that point, so I'm just looking for some clarification on that, please and thank you.
Ms. Webb?
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Fowler. I mean, I would think that in terms of the principles, there's principles here that we're going to be using for a period of time, even when things sort of get more back to normal. So for example, you know, the changing face of services, and you know, the CAA spoke to that you know, those post COVID services and the needs of the community may be changing. So, you know, we need to be aware of these things. We need to be considering these things as we make decisions going forward.
Okay, so in essence, we're keeping them in perpetuity, but adapting them as the environment changes. Is that correct?
I would suggest, yes. I mean, you know, I mean, because I think that we know that the COVID impacts are going to be with us a while. So I think we're going to hold these principles close to us as we work through the impacts of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this report? Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just looking at page 8 of 12, the financial impact, the loss of revenues that we're going to be incurring. I think I've figured this roughly over $11 million there. When we're looking at capital and operating over the next process, I think we're very carefully going to have to consider that we are going to be in a deficit position. And I think this ties in with the next project we have, the next item coming forward. I just want council to be aware that's a lot of money that we've got to find alternative source for or reserves for, which could impact us later. Just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that particular page. Thank you.
Ms. Webb or?
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Davidson, certainly, I mean, the reason we're highlighting these things and the reason we've done this work is to identify what those financial impacts are. We need to be aware of them. Because as we are managing the current year, 2020, we're making changes and adaptations to manage the current year operating budget. We don't want to leave the year. We're going to mitigate those losses in that deficit as much as we can. In terms of the $11 million on here related to capital, when we go to build, and we're starting that process now, but as we build our capital budget, these are things that we are certainly going to consider. We're going to consider the changing needs of the community, our whole capital program. We need to make sure that that capital program is fitting the needs in that post-COVID period of time. And we're going to consider those lost revenues and make adjustments. We understand that these impacts are going to be with us for a while, and we're working towards that. And you should see those impacts come through in the 21-22 budget.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know we're not the only municipality that's having issues on this, and I mean, it's all across the country. And I think that the province and the federal government has to step in and help the municipalities with these expenses. And I know that everybody's hurting right now, and I'm not really sure how this is going to work out. But has the town received any major money from the province or the federal government to this?
So through your worship to Councillor Payne, and your worship, you could probably speak to it better than I can, but in the report, we do speak to a letter that has been sent to the federal and provincial governments from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and AMO, requesting assistance and requesting collaboration and partnering with the other levels of government, because we know there's big needs out there. And so the report does speak to that. We haven't received anything yet, but certainly, you know, we're on the lookout for any opportunities that may exist that could provide assistance to ourselves and the community.
Thank you. And I understand that it has been requested. I wasn't sure if we have received anything at this point. And we'll be glad to get something because, like I say, everybody needs it.
Thank you, Councillor. The only, there was some provincial money, 250 million that went to upper tier municipalities. So Simcoe County got it because it was for social services. It was a gap to help house the homeless people, and I think there was money given to the food bank and Ontario Works. So it was all for social services. So it went directly to Simcoe County, and no lower tier municipalities or nobody who wasn't involved in social services got any of that. The letter for FCM, I mean, there's lots of advocacy. We're constantly advocating for municipalities, and Minister Phillip was good to say that that he did say that 250 million for social services was round one. So he's kind of hinted that, you know, there will be help coming. He's asked for examples of what municipalities are going through and what we are forecasting. I have to tell you, you know, compared to our counterparts across Canada, we're doing really well because we don't have transit. Transit is the killer because they're getting zero revenue and their costs are going up because the buses have to be sanitized more often, and they're getting no revenue. So it's the municipalities that are hurting the most are the ones that have big transit dollars attached to their budgets. So, you know, we're not out of the woods, but if you put us on a scale across, you know, municipalities, I think we're faring better than most. What else did I want to talk? I think that was all I had to say. Anyone else? Questions or comments on this? Seeing none. All in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed to the recommendation? That's carried unanimously. Next is item C4, which was the staff report regarding the construction of the Adams and Simcoe ramp. And that was pulled by Councillor Orsatti.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, Councillor Bill Van Berkel is my seconder on this one, and I just wanted to speak on this item, and yeah, I would, you know, thank Mr. Roth for his presentation and expressing his concerns, and I know that, you know, this ramp and this change in the stairs in this area from Adams Road to Simcoe Boulevard, which is quite an elevation for those that haven't been there. It is disruptive to the residents who have, you know, felt that they have lived on a dead end road, but it's not being opened up to vehicle traffic. It's for pedestrians. And all of us on council, especially at this time, would like to save money on this project and any projects, but our options are limited. And I do not believe that we can afford not to do this project. I know it doesn't make it a popular decision for me to say that, but if we wait another year, it only increased the costs and potential lawsuits. And lawsuits cost all taxpayers in settlements. And architects and engineers have looked at this area. They have all agreed that they can come up with a design that best fits this, and we have to trust their expertise. And staff have assured us that they'll work with the neighboring properties to ensure that all of them are notified of the work involved throughout the stage. And the stairs are no longer, they've deteriorated, so they're no longer safe. And the moment we touch the stairs, we have to consider the accessible needs for all residents. And, you know, I've gone over this and looked at everything and thought, why do we have to do this in the beginning? But to close the ramp, because it's costly to replace, prevents residents access between the two links in the roadway that has been there for generations. And the pictures that are in this report are really helpful. And it prevents children a safe passage to access the bus on the next road. And the cost to replace will only increase. And to remove the ramp, because it's a simpler solution, just close it up and prevent anyone from using it, means we're not taking into consideration all the residents. We must be inclusive in all our decisions on council, and those come at a cost to ensure all our residents have the same rights and they're treated fairly without restrictions. And I would hope that, you know, we're not going to deny those with accessible needs to the basic option to move within their community without restrictions. I see no other option but to accept this report and move forward. To push residents to say that they can go on Helen Street and out in St. John's, that's fine if you are have all your mobility. But if you have someone in a wheelchair, if you have someone in a walker, you have seniors, you are not going to be putting them out onto St. John's Road in that section where it is a very high speeding area. And also they would have to come all the way back around to access Simcoe Boulevard. And I know it's money that we'd all love to find a magic way not to do this. But, you know, if we had one lawsuit, this is like 3 times that we could do 3 ramps in this. Anyway, that I just want to express my opinion. I know it's created a lot of anxiety for residents that live in this area and concern. And but I feel that we have to be inclusive. We have to think of everyone, and we have to move forward with this.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Davidson.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand Councillor Asadi's points on that very clearly. However, over the last few weeks since we last spoke about this, I've had a chance to look at it and think about it. It is a lot of money, $600,000 for 9 stairs, as Councillor Nicol pointed out, almost $50,000 a stair. I was just an idea on council to think about if we maybe defer this for a thought. How if we had it built for the summertime use, is when it gets most population to get down to the lake or whatever, and we closed it off in the winter. And the only season I'm saying close it off for the winter, it is going to be a heated walkway. Probably staff could answer this. A heated walkway, if it fails, who is liable? Are we, the municipality, liable if it fails, or the manufacturer that designed and put the heating system in? So I've seen in other places where no winter access is quite often posted. I think we could cut the cost considerably, still provide it without the heating element, and therefore have it closed in the winter time when there's less people out and about walking. And I'm just one of those people that I think we're going to go into a hell of a fall financially this fall, next budget process. And if we don't start cutting back something now and making the public aware that sacrifices are going to have to be made if we're all going to get through this period of the next recession. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. To you, would you know the percentage or how much of the would be saved by taking out the heating element? I'm putting you on the spot. I apologize.
Through your worship, we have estimated that the heating costs associated with the ramp to install the system are approximately $32,000 with annual operating costs around the $10,000 mark. This heating system is only part of the maintenance required for this ramp through the winter. We would still be monitoring and cleaning off manually as required. With respect to who would be responsible if it failed, there is a warranty period associated with these works when they're installed. It's usually a 1-year warranty. And then following that, it would be the town's responsibility to maintain the system. And then I think I also just want to add that although there is slightly less usage of this ramp in the winter, we did install pedestrian counters at this location throughout this past winter and it's currently installed there now. So we collected data through the winter and this spring. And we're seeing pretty high usage even through the winter. We are seeing about an average of 116 pedestrians per day in the winter. And since April 30th is the last day that we have the data, it's rose to 139 per day. And then I think also it's important to consider that this access is being used for residents to catch the school bus. The school bus stop is at the corner of Adams and Helen. And so even if, you know, if this was closed during the winter, that school bus stop would have to be relocated.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I decided that, you know, if I was going to vote on this, I should go down and take a look. And I've been down there, but it was in years past. But so I took my bike and I cycled down there. First of all, stairs are not bicycle friendly, especially if it's a road bike with very narrow wheels, which meant I had to carry my bike up the stairs. And then I cycled around the route that that wheelchairs and people walking would have to take. On a bike, it's relatively quickly. Still not that safe on John Street, but I would not want to have people having to walk around that or take their wheelchairs around that. It's just too dangerous. It's too long. It's too out of the way. So, you know, it is an expense. I'm just going to hold my nose and vote on yes, because it needs to be done, and it's not fair to those, you know, 140 or 50 people who are having to go up and down those stairs or have to go up during the wintertime to have them walk around. And believe me, if the stairs weren't there, the ramp wasn't there, people would find their way around that and they'd be walking on people's property, and then we'd have all sorts of other complaints. So I think, you know, it's just one of those projects that you just say we need to move ahead with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nicol and then Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Worship. As the Deputy Mayor alluded to, I want to save money as well too. And you know, initially when I did the math and looking at $50,000 per step, I didn't want to support this whatsoever. Obviously, going through the entire report and actually seeing the design, I don't think we can close it off for the winter. It is the students do use it to get through. We do need some accessibility. Again, with the design itself and how it's going to impact the community, I have no issue with this project whatsoever. Rather not spend that kind of money, but I can see that the accessibility and the need for the community to move around is more paramount than saving a couple of dollars right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Van Berkel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with, I agree basically with all the statements that were made here. I'd like to save money too. But as far as I'm concerned, we have, two options. One is close the ramp down altogether, and the other one is build it. And even the option of closing it down altogether, I don't think is an option, because for a safety factor, what are we going to put across there unless build an 8-foot wall that they can't climb? You're going to have kids climbing up and down that, and somebody's going to fall, and we're still going to be liable. If we touch those stairs, as Councillor Asadi says right now, to repair them, then we're into a ramp anyway, because it's a whole new ball game. You can't repair them. And as far as taking out the heated ramp, for $32,000, that heated ramp pays for itself in a couple of years. And there are other costs involved, just like Ms. Jenkins said. So for me, it's been a liability thing all along, even before we decided to do this. And now that we've gone through public meetings and everything else, and people are geared up to have something new there, and if we didn't do this, I mean, we're going to be liable a lot quicker than we have been in the past. So I have no problem saying yes, we have to do this for that very reason.
Thank you. Councillor Asadi, follow up.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, I mean, I too would like to find ways, and I think there's other ways that we can save money that we're spending on this ramp for the increased costs. Cutting back on some of the things like at the town square. We don't need all those things now. Those can be pushed to later years. There's other projects where we can cut back to cover some of this. So I think we can, be a lot tighter on the purse strings and others, but when it comes to accessibility, I can't with a clear conscience do that to someone, to push them, to not give them the accessible rights in the community, to not be inclusive to them, and to consider them on the roadway. But, Deputy Mayor, I'll be right with you looking at everything else where we can come up with that money.
Thank you. Ms. Jenkins, just to cover the comments about there's the vibration monitoring in the report, but about you know, potential harm to someone's foundation. So can you explain how the town, we do like the pre and post construction photos and things like that?
Through your worship, yes, because of the site constraints in this area and the close proximity of some of the surrounding buildings, we are definitely being sensitive to that during construction. We are planning to do vibration monitoring throughout the duration of construction, where we will ensure that vibrations are kept within the acceptable limits. We've also had a few inquiries about this, and you know, we are able to confirm sort of, our consultant has looked at sort of that envelope of where the vibrations may have an impact, and we've confirmed that the other than the building that is right adjacent to the ramp, we should be outside that zone where there should be any sort of damages. That being said, again, we're doing the vibration monitoring, and that will be done throughout the duration of construction to ensure that that we stay within the acceptable limits. We do also take pre-construction photos, and we also sometimes go beyond that to do precondition surveys if certain buildings or amenities are within the zone that we think may be influenced by the vibrations. So that's all part of our process as far as the pre-construction assessments are concerned.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. And I just also wanted to point out one thing, that the gentleman at Open Forum, although he obviously is not happy that the town is going ahead with this project and or even considering this project, had nothing but wonderful things to say about the professionalism of our staff. And you know, it's one thing when you're happy with a project to be happy with the staff. It's another thing to be happy with the staff when you're not happy with the project. So would you please pass on our thanks to your team? Thank you. Now we'll take a vote on these. All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Were you voting, Councillor Fowler, or did you have a question? Okay. Next is waterfront parking rates, and that was pulled by Councillor Nicol.
Your Worship, I do have a revised recommendation that Councillor Asadi has offered to second to get on the table. I wondered if I could just speak to that, to the reasoning for that.
Certainly. Is this the one that's up here now?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
So I know that Councillor Asadi and Waters and the committee and the community for that matter are very interested in the fee increases at Innisfil Beach Park, as this would work as a deterrent and to generate revenue at the Innisfil Beach Park, where it's truly a destination. But I think it's just too much for the Shore Acres lot. We have still many issues in Guildford with crowded streets, including Guildford Road, Neely, Shore Acres, Lakeshore, Dempsey, and the second line. Because of those, they're not willing to pay $20 or $30 per day at the lot now. Even the local marina only charges $20 or $30 for the day. I know that there's a petition that will be coming soon to council requesting for resident-only parking in certain streets, including Neely right now. I hope the rest of the council will support my revised motion to only include Innisfil Beach Park and to exclude the Shore Acres lot and launch and the one on Guest as well. These two are strictly water access points and not the destination points that the beach and the park is. I understand the committee's wish to have consistency within every parking lot in the community, but again, these are just access points. They're not the destination. So revised recommendation is just to raise the rates at Innisfil Beach Park and leave the other two alone at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this revised recommendation from Councillor Nicol? Councillor Van Berkel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would agree with Councillor Nicol. I looked after that ward for a long time, and whatever he said just now, you know, I agree with all that 100%. That's it's two different places altogether, and I would second that recommendation in a second.
Thank you. Councillor Asadi.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I think I can understand where Mr. Inwood was going with this before, because when we looked at rates, we were concerned that the first concern was if it was one rate for Innisfil Beach Park and cheaper elsewhere, we would be pushing people out of Innisfil Beach Park and they'd be trying to go to the other areas to access the lake. But certainly if you have the ward councillor that can stand up for the other areas and speak about that, then I think it's covered, and I certainly would support his recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Inwood, just a quick question. Does the programming or anything cause you heartburn to have two different rates and two different parking lots?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, there's no issue. We're able to program each unit individually with the system that's in place today. And any changes in the future, that would be a minimum requirement. So no heartburn.
Great, thank you. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a thought there. Now, obviously, I'm asking for the rates to remain the same. In the future, when Shore Acres becomes a manned or a metered ramp, I would fully hope that we'd be the exact same price for launching there as it is the beach park. And if there are any opportunities or any sort of technologies that are coming forward to help with that, I'd be more than happy to hear about that at some point.
Thank you. All in favor of the recommendation as amended? Those opposed? That's carried. And that is it for Committee of the Whole. So RISE recommendation is moved by Councillor Fowler and seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That's carried. And next on the agenda is our consideration of the adoption of the recommendations that we made in Committee of the Whole, and that's moved by Councillor Van Berkel and seconded by Councillor Arsati. All those in favor? That is carried. We have a notice of motion for Councillor Fowler regarding hens that will be on next council meeting if people want to investigate that. And there's another notice of motion that is time sensitive, council. So I would ask that we might consider waiving notice on this one, and I'd be happy to explain why. We think that there may be a move to open marinas and therefore boat launches fairly soon, and we want to be able to have the ability to act without having to wait until the next council meeting. And what this does is it allows the chief administrative officer in concert with the EOC to make decisions about a gradual opening. And if you could see in the last, now therefore be it resolved, to exempt from its application certain boat ramps in full or in part, i.e. residents only, parking lots, and or to exempt from its application persons. So the idea is to have the EOC have the ability to gradually open up ramps in conjunction with our partners around the lake. One of the agreements, other than spending some dollars on advertising in the GTA and doing the joint press release and the signs on the highway, was that when we did open up, we would collaborate to try to all open up at the same time so as not to overwhelm one community or another. If you can imagine, if we were the only boat ramp open on all of Lake Simcoe, we'd have boats coming from everywhere, and it would be quite a chaotic. So the idea around this was to give that latitude to the CAO, and if we do get word that the ramps are opening up or that the marinas are opening up and the other municipalities are opening up over the weekend, then we could follow suit. So before we do any debate, I would just ask whether or not there's any appetite to waive notice so we could deal with this motion this evening. Any opposed? Thank you. The fishermen will, I'm sure, be happy with this decision. So now, anybody have any comments on the motion? Councillor Van Berkel. You're on mute, Councillor.
I'm sorry. I said my only comment is that it's a good motion. If it's coming, that, you know, we should be able to act on it. So I'm all in favor of it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Nickel.
Hey, Your Worship, I know that the CAO does have a boat as well too, and I'm just wondering if there's any way I can get in line ahead of him before he opens up the launches as well. Sorry, I'm just kidding.
So I can tell you that, and I know residents have been so patient, and I can tell you that every decision that comes out of the emergency operations team is well debated, well thought out, and not taken lightly. All of the consequences or unintended consequences, we try to get on top of all of that. And I think that everybody has their particular focus. So we have the fire chief, we have the police chief, we have all the operations team, finance team, IT, communications, everybody is involved in these decisions. And we you know, always will put the health and safety of our residents first, but at the same time, we also know we cannot stay in our homes forever. So, Mr. Parkin?
Your Worship, thank you. Just wondering if we had a mover and a seconder for that one. I didn't catch it if you did one, sorry.
Well, thank you, Mr. Parkin. I didn't. So I have Deputy Mayor Davidson and Councillor Nickel. So any other comments or questions on it? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Next is their announcements. Oh, I see Councillor Nickel has an announcement.
Obviously, we all been stretched during this time, and I just want to share a thank you video that was organized by Pam Arnold, the president of the Cookstown Chamber of Commerce, and the members of the Commerce Chamber, as well as the residents of Cookstown. I just want to share with council and staff and the community as a whole. I just really thank them for all of their work that they did putting this together.
Thank you. I think there's supposed to be music with it, but maybe we don't have the technology.
There definitely was a soundtrack on that as well.
Oh, that was well done. Really well done. Thank you for sharing. Any other announcements? Councillor Fowler?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two today. One, if you recall, a number of weeks ago, well, a little over, give or take, I did a drive for a family in Ward 5 with their son in the NICU, little Ronnie. I'm proud to say that he has arrived home safe and sound today. He finally was allowed to come home, hit the 5-pound mark. And because of the generosity of everybody in our town and community, he is going to be safe and secure for the next while they just kind of lock the world away and just kind of enjoy them all to themselves. So that I'm truly appreciative for. The second is we have an incredible lady in our ward named Bonnie Barth. She is starting a campaign of sorts for the Lakeside Retirement Home. She hasn't given it an official title, but we kind of in our household started calling it the Caring Card Campaign. She initially reached out to some people to say if she can get some cards written up to, drop off on her front porch. And from there, she would sanitize them accordingly. And then, when she had a large enough amount, take them to the Lakeside Retirement Home. It kind of grew legs on its own. It's gotten to the point now that the church has got involved, and Pastor Courtney's been kind enough to allow me to install a temporary mailbox on the property. In the next 24, 48 hours, they'll be setting it up where people can stop by, get out of their vehicle quietly, just drop a card into the existing mailbox, and then she will come by every day or 3 to come pick it up. And then from there, she will take them home and keep sanitizing as she keeps getting more. Now, I would like to personally thank Councillor Sadi. She's now helping us with this Caring Card campaign, and she's going to offer a great amount of support, and I believe she wished to add something, if I am correct.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler. I just want to add that along with that, thank you to the teachers and students at Nantar Shores who have gotten involved in this project. And I think this is a great demonstration in our community about how residents reach out throughout the town. In thinking of others and the care. So it's a great initiative. And Councillor Fowler, if you can thank the resident in your ward, and thank you to all those that are involved, because it's going to make a big difference to those seniors who are not able to see their family members.
If I may add one last thing, it just goes to show when we join forces, the incredible things we can accomplish. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'll add that they will be, the workers and the residents at Lakeside will be getting a special treat delivered by a local bake shop on behalf of all of us. So just a little treat to brighten their day. Anyone else have an announcement? Seeing none, I have one just to say that I was happy to attend a drive-by birthday for Lillian Vaughn. Lillian is 101 years old, and it was lovely to be able to wish her a happy birthday. And I see no more announcements, so I guess the last item would be the confirming bylaw, and I would need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Van Berkel and Councillor Waters, and all those in favor? That is carried. And before we do adjournment, I'd ask any staff member who would love to, or if you don't want to, it's okay, but just to turn your video on so we can all see you before we say goodnight. And thank you so much for participating. And many of you sat in the dark the whole time, so it's nice to just say hello to you before we leave. And we have a public planning meeting next Wednesday night, so we'll see some of you then. And so a mover and a seconder for adjournment is Councillor Nickel and Councillor Payne. All those in favor? That's carried. Thanks, everybody. Have the good rest of the evening, and we'll talk soon. Stay safe and be well.
Bye.